how the first computer revolutionized history. This all started when Charles Babbage and his colleagues started to work on the analytical engine during the 19th century in England. They had the goal of solving math calculations more efficiently. This led the path for modern computers, which was a revolutionary invention that marked the beginning of the modern computer era. The analytical engine remains as a milestone in the history of computing, inspiring further advancements and paving the way for the innovations of modern computers. Many of the innovations, inventions, and technologies that we have today, from computers and phones to space exploration and AI, can all be traced back to one invention: the first computer. The first computer was what revolutionized the way humans analyzed, processed, and made data, which set the foundation for modern computing and transforming the world we live in today. Charles Babbage is the man who created the analytical engine, which was credited as the first computer ever made. In 1834, Charles Babbage began the development of the analytical engine and the intention of eliminating any human error when doing mathematical calculations. Before the analytical engine was invented, there was an engine before that was called the difference engine, also created by Charles Babbage. It was an early calculating machine that was also the first computer. The idea of this machine came from when Charles Babbage wanted to automate astronomical calculations and map tables for navigation. He stated that by automating the calculations for navigation, it would be more accurate and would not put sailors at sea in danger due to errors in map tables. He gained support for his idea and asked the government for a grant in order to fund the development of it, being the first government grant used towards technological development. Charles Babbage hired Joseph Clement, a toolmaker, to build the engine. Unfortunately, the difference engine was never fully completed as the parts that were needed in order to make it were too expensive for Charles and abruptly stopped in 1833 after a dispute between Charles and Clement, as well as funding for it from the government was stopped. After the difference engine, Charles had an idea to revolutionize the difference engine as something that can perform any calculations and be more general purpose and fully program controlled. The analytical engine had four components that are still the essential components of modern computers today: the mill or the processor, the storage, the reader and the printer being the input and output devices of the computer. Charles Babbage took a card reading technology, an idea from Joseph Marie Jacquard, in order to program the computer and made it more flexible than any other machine created during that time. Charles Babbage worked on it until his death in 1871. He never completed the analytical engine. The analytical engine was a machine way ahead of its time. It was supposed to be large enough to hold 1050 digit numbers, which was the largest storage capacity than any computer built before 1960. The analytical engine also was able to read instructions and programs not only in sequential order, but also had a decision making aspect, making it able to jump to a different instruction depending on the value. This was a powerful aspect and was not in computers even in the early 20th century. Some of the long-term impacts of the analytical engine was that it later on influenced the development of computer science. The principles of Charles Babbage used in designing and building the analytical engine were the foundation of today's computers and their hardware and software. Another long-term impact that the analytical engine had was in science and technology. The computer was that what allowed the internet to be created, as well as the development of AI and medical imaging, which improved the treatment of many medical conditions. It also made the Apollo 11 mission possible, navigating and controlling the spacecraft journey throughout space. Also, the analytical engine has short-term as well as a long-term impact in mathematical research. Although never completed, Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace's first intentions were just to generate more accurate results in a shorter period of time than anything possible. But also they saw potential of the machine, and computers now are used to solve complex problems, generate simulations, and the many programming concepts developed for the analytical engine, were the foundations of programming in computers today. It first inspired many of the computers of the early mid 20th century, like the Harvard Mark I, which used punch cards, and the separation of the CPU and memory, which came from the analytical engine. It also inspired many of the systems like the IBM System 360 and the System 360, which were used to perform complex calculation and allowed for different components to be matched like the analytical engine. The biggest influence that the analytical engine had, which affects us today, is on Apple. The Apple Macintosh, built in 1980, was one of the first digital personal computers that were on the market. Its GUI, or graphical user interface, was heavily influenced by the design of the analytical engine. Today, Apple is the number one most valuable company in the world with the estimated value of about $2.8 trillion dollars, and has sold over 2.6 billion iPhones and went up to 1 billion Macs, which are used by millions of people globally every day. Earlier computers that were invented during the early 1900s after the analytical engine still had a massive impact on computers and technology today. During World War II, the Germans created the Enigma machine, one of the most secure encryption systems of its time, which used rotors in order to scribble messages. The Germans used it to contain info about military plans, troop movements, and other crucial info of the war. The Enigma machine was able to encrypt and decrypt messages based on a key shared by the sender and receiver, which was a which was changed every 24 hours, making it difficult to decode. Alan Turing, who worked with the code breakers for the Allies part-time, wanted to find a way to break the code for the Enigma machine. In order to break the code of the Enigma machine, he and his team worked on a machine called the Bombay, which was invented by a Polish cryptologist. The machine produced possible combinations of rotor positions and tested the combinations in order to find a valid encryption. Because of the machine, the Allies were able to intercept many of the Germans' military traffic and decode many of it, and find out about their tactics, allowing them to deploy their troops more efficiently and gain the upper hand in battles that they have fought. The Bombay is credited with shortening the war by 2 years, and also for displaying the role of intelligence gathering in military operations and national security today. They also played a significant role in the development of computers like the analytical engine, did by using the complex algorithms and logic gates, which have been redefined for the development of the electronic computer. Both the analytical engine and the Bombay inspired the development of modern computers today. By inspiring further research and development in the field of computing, as engineers wanted to create better machines, they also used many of the components that were used in the Bombay and the analytical engine, such as rotors and punch cards. Machines also established principles of computing such as logic, operations, algorithms, and symbolic notation, which is the basis of computer science today. Alan Turing also made a theoretical concept of a general purpose computer in 1936 called the Turing machine, based on the tape of infinite length, which is divided into squares, and a head that would read the tape and put a new symbol onto it based on a set of rules that it has to follow. These concepts are very basic of how a program works, and the machine devised many problems and theories which have been used in the development of modern computers today. The analytical engine has shown to be a milestone and the start of the history of computing. It's revolutionized the world and the modern era and the new advancements and innovations. From letting companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google to exist, to just simply letting people all over the world to be connected. The computer has changed our economy and is a historical milestone in human history, which will continue to advance society in the near future.